Okay, so Charlene, thanks for joining me. And what I'd like to ask really today is just a couple of things around brands. I'm interested to know which brands are important in your life, get a feel for why they may be important to you, and then more specifically, would there be any of the brands that you have adopted or you feel passionate about that you would actually encourage others to look at in terms of their own life and their choices and preferences?
Okay.
Okay.
For importance of brands in my life, a big important brand in my life is Red Bull.
Okay.
Based on the energy factor. Another important brand in my life is Grey Goose, which is interesting because Grey Goose plus Red Bull go together quite nicely. So that's a good one. And then if I'm thinking about just my day-to-day, just for branding, I mean, things like being a prairie girl, I'm a big brand supporter of Ford, for example, in cars and vehicles. Just the strength, the durability. I grew up on a farm, so that's always been a big brand in my life and with my family and with our means of transportation and hauling on the farm. So there's been an evolution of Ford and what it means to me and to my intimate family, my intimate friends. So.
Okay, so if I take Red Bull first,
sure.
How does it keep relevant to you? What is it that they do that maybe enables them to, as you're, I guess, maturing in life and as your circle of friends keeps changing, what do they do that maybe keeps them relevant to you?
What they do is basically they are very quick to respond. What I have found that when Red Bull first started distribution, they kind of went mass market trying to get a feel of who would respond, and it took off quickly. I mean, they're the leading energy drink. And then they found a niche, particularly in what we call Horka venues with Imperial, and they would go into these venues. They actually started doing agreements where they had a select designer fridge made specifically for their brand. They would either make it more premium looking, more mainstream looking, depending on the venue. And this is where it impacted me in my social circle, because that's where we first started noticing it, thinking, oh, Red Bull's now right next to the premium vodkas in this premium bar, and wow, for them to have this space in this bar means they must be adding some value not only to this bar itself, but the people who come here. That reflects on me. I end up trying it, my friends end up trying it, and they start partnering up that way to the point where so many people started drinking vodka and Red Bull together. They then changed quickly, let's add vodka to the Red Bull, and they started distributing that in the States. So it's just always having the pulse, the mass distribution, and then doing little niche things with select consumers or customers to make more of a bigger impact.
So Red Bull has kept itself relevant to you by being in place in the areas that you choose to spend your time.
Exactly.
So it's matching their profile with your profile of choice.
And it kind of follows me wherever
follows
I go.
you wherever you go.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Do you consider them to be too mass media, like too mass appeal, or are they? How do you feel? Are they more niche or mass?
I find that they're still in the niche. I find them still in their own specific niche category. I mean, they started the whole kind of revolution of energy drinks, and then you had the rock stars and the monsters come, but then Red Bull kind of took it to the next level with their own vans, and then delivering door-to-door service with just Red Bull on the van, and then they go into the sporting. Now, I mean, Red Bull's got cars and racing like we used to do. Red Bull does the Quebec like ice skate thing when you're racing down on skis with guys, like extreme sports, which we had some ties to, and JTI does, for example. So they're really becoming not just the energy drink of choice, they're becoming a brand in that we can represent a certain premium extreme sports kind of event. Because if you go to any of these events, it's not like just any other event. Everything is detailed. It's very, to the consumer. You feel special. They go above and beyond with everything they do to make it very extreme and in your face. That separates them from every other energy drink. Nobody else seems to be able to do that.
Okay. If I was to ask you about Grey Goose, would there be anything that, particularly about the brand and what they do with the brand that allows 100%.
You? 100%. Okay. Like with Grey Goose, they've also positioned themselves to be, they separate themselves from the other premium vodka, in the market. And they've seemed to have captured their brand without using too many words. They evoke feeling. If you look at their advertisement, their commercials, there's like their commercial, I mean, you hear the sound of a sailboat, oysters cracking, the pop, the ice in the glass. It gives you shivers. That's not even using words. That's evoking an emotion. And so it's a feeling. So when I see that cold Grey Goose bottle in the freezer and I'm trying to pick my vodkas, I'm thinking of that oyster cracking and that glass shaking and my legs off the side of a boat. that I go is like actions speak louder than words, and I think they've done that masterfully, and that's kind of elevate their position in the premium vodka market.
Okay.
Where it's also, you can taste it and you're thinking of that feeling at the same time, and where you feel like it's cold and clear and filtered when you drink it, whether it's perceived or not. That's what you're feeling when it's down your throat.
Would you be able to say that you have tried a taste test where maybe perhaps you've had Grey Goose? You have.
Oh yeah.
And
like between a Kettle One and a Grey Goose. And it just seems, it feels cleaner, it feels colder, whether they be chilled at the same or not. They're just an evoke of emotion.
So you'd be very confident that you could taste test Grey Goose versus other
100%.
brands?
I know I could.
You know you could?
I know I could.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then my final question around brands that you've mentioned is for Ford. Yeah, so for yourself, you've explained it comes from where perhaps you came from, the prairies, the ruggedness, the farming.
Yeah.
So those are fairly traditional. What keeps that brand relevant today, knowing now that you live urban, you live in a much different environment to that you grew up in? What keeps it relevant today for you?
Well, they've kind of come on with like Ford Tough. Ford Tough, and Ford is always about their quality, the toughness, the getting over the humps to get you to the end of your trail. But as you've seen them evolve, they've never lost the Ford Tough, but they've kind of just made it tough but sleek. So now you're the guy who grew up on the farm in your Ford truck, but you are in the urban city now, and you've got the round edges, you've got the 450, it's sleek, you got a big cab that you can put your like Sea-Doo in now, you're in a different lifestyle, you're making more money, got the bigger truck with the fancier toys going out to the cabin, but you started in the city. So they're very good at tying in from where you may have started to now how it's relevant today, where you can use that truck in the city and just be as cool as the little Audi next to you, if not cooler.
Okay.
Yeah.
Before we talk about maybe which one you would actively promote, although I'm guessing perhaps all three, let me ask you just about social media and the way that marketing, branding has evolved. Are there any, would you consider that when we think about Twitter, Facebook, we think about blogging, we think about those things, are there any brands that you perhaps would say the social media has made them more relevant for you? And if so, how? And if not, is there anything that you feel perhaps for the brands that you've already mentioned that they could do differently that would keep them more relevant using social media?
Okay. Social media is interesting for me because I actively do not participate in social media. I'm not on Facebook, I'm not on Twitter, although I do have access to both social medias because I like to stay relevant without being on it. Do you understand? I'm able to go into it. I think Red Bull probably uses that the best. Grey Goose still isn't from the social media. They're, like I said, they're looking for a certain customer. They distinguish themselves from mass social media production. They don't send out messages through Facebook and Twitters all the time. They want an exclusive kind of customer, so they're not so focused on that. Where Red Bull is your Facebook pages, your Twitters, and how they're using it to their advantage is if you're on Twitter, Red Bull will send out a little message to saying the first 100 people to email us back at this gets 2 cases of Red Bull to their house or tickets to the next hockey game. They'll do that, which is exclusive. It makes people feel exclusive. Well, I'm on Twitter. I was checking Red Bull's Twitter page, saw this between this hour and this hour, and I got this. That social media then becomes word of mouth. Okay. Right? And the next link. So I think they've been the ones to do that best when I think of all 3 of those products.
Okay. Yeah. Now, if I was to force you to say, if you had to choose one of those 3 brands to be more active in terms of adopting friends to that brand, would there be one that would stand out or not?
Just probably Grey Goose. Just because of the socially, when I drink or I host we always start off, also my heritage being Ukrainian, it's always a shot of vodka at the table. Okay. So that's part of my family tradition. So when I have dinner parties or I'm socializing, it's kind of like that first shot at a dinner party, or if we go out, it's Grey Goose and soda, and I'm always introducing it, that's just where I find influence for socializing part, where I have the most influence, where the Ford is more of a, I think it's just a personal, more of a nostalgic kind of thing for me, and it's nothing I almost like to keep it a little bit to myself, but Grey Goose is one I always try to brand, or it's branded in my home at least.
Charlene, thank you for sharing your thoughts today.
Thanks,
Very
Peter.
kind. Thank you.